Good afternoon. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the HBCU Career Crash Course sponsored by Bank of America. We are incredibly excited about the upcoming conference and career fair, which will be held in September, as you can see from this slide, and the best skyline ever. We will be in Chicago. It will be a hybrid this year, and we are equally excited about sponsors such as Bank of America, who are taking the time to help our members, you, put their best foot forward by preparing beforehand to get conference ready. So let me get straight to introductions. Our first representative is Tia Brown. She is Assistant Vice President within Diversity Campus Recruiting. She manages campus engagement and recruitment strategies at HBCUs, while also supporting diverse external partnerships and internal talent programs. She herself is a proud HBCU graduate, earning her Bachelor's of Arts from Winston-Salem State University. Then we have Stephen Bowe. He is Vice President within Global Human Resources and manages partnerships with external talent organizations and focuses on recruiting strategies that address issues of underrepresentation. He earned his Bachelor's of Arts from Brown University, where he double concentrated in American Civilization and Hispanic Studies. Bank of America, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much for those introductions. All right, are we good to hop into our presentation, Paula?
Yes, sir. Take it away.
Okay, let us get right to it. So I'm going to leave this slide up really quickly before I get us situated on what we have going on here. So this session is intended to be an informal prep session, a safe space for you guys to ask lots of questions, and really just cover the basics of what you need to know to leave this ready to make the most of the upcoming convention, because it really will be a great opportunity for you to showcase yourself to recruiters, to professionals, to future employers. So we really want to do our best to help equip you for that. So a couple of things that we'll ask, and you'll have access to this link after today's presentation. If you're interested in letting us know that you joined today's session, you can use this QR code or the link down at the bottom of this slide to just sign in, and you'll also have the option to leave us with your resume. And that's always great for us to be able to hand off to various recruiters so that we can get you started on the hiring process for some of the programs that we offer. And we'll talk about what those are. But before we get there, I want to stop. And Tia and I will just quickly say hello and reintroduce ourselves. So, you heard our backgrounds, you kind of know what we do. We work really closely together. And I like to mention too that even though I went to Brown for undergrad, I have a close connection to HBCUs too. So my grandmother is a Howard alum, and I've been a recruiter at HBCUs for a few years. So I feel very close to the HBCU community. And I'm really glad to be giving this presentation today. Tia, would you like to say a few words?
Awesome. No, absolutely. Thank you all so much for having us. I am, again, Dontia Brown. I go by Tia. I'm a diversity campus recruiter, again, proud HBCU graduate, and I'm actually an alum, I guess I would call myself, of the National Black MBA Association. I actually got my job through the partnership and through this conference. And so I am super excited to be here. It's like a full circle moment for me. Just a little bit more about me. I am a former HBCU queen as well. And so I've had the opportunity to go to multiple HBCU campuses during my tenure in school. And in student leadership, and now again, full circle moment, being able to do that and recruit great talent from our institutions to Bank of America. So super excited to be here. Hopefully you guys learned something, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you throughout the recruitment process. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Stephen.
All right, great, thanks Tia. So we're going to tag team a little bit today. So we're going to cover a few topics, and then like I promised at the beginning, we'll make sure that there's time for Q&A. So 3 broad things that we want to get through with you all today. We want to talk about how you can refine your personal brand. We want to talk about how you can navigate networking, is very important, right? Not just during the conference, but also through the entire recruiting season. And then we'll talk about what happens after you put that networking to use. You've applied for a role. Everyone agrees that you're a great candidate and you're sitting in the seat as an interviewee. How do you make the most of that opportunity as someone interviewing for a role? And at the end, we'll be using the Q&A option, which is available, I believe, in your Zoom platform. So if you have questions along the way, just feel free to drop them in and we'll go through those at the very end. So that's what we have planned for you. I'll start really briefly with a quick introduction of who we actually are, right? Because this is my opportunity as a brand ambassador to make sure you know what Bank of America actually recruits for, right? So this question here at the top of the slide, so what would you like the college to do? It's a question that we use to guide the work that we do. Our professionals who work with clients use that question to help understand what solutions to provide, but we also ask that same question of all the employees who work here, right? So we want to make sure that the 200,000 plus employees who make up our workforce feel empowered to make an impact in the way that they want to do that. I'll also just say, in terms of context for Bank of America, if you're thinking about us as a company, we consider ourselves what's called a universal bank. So that means that we're more than just the branch location that you might know that's down the street, because we also have services that include wealth management. We also have our global investment bank, which has functions like sales and trading. There's an entire army of folks who make our technology and operations real, so that all of our work can get done on a global scale. And then there are corporate functions that are aligned to all that work too. So if you think about human resources, where Tia and I work, our marketing teams, our legal teams, internal finance, it's a long list. And we'll talk a little bit about what some of those programs are. I think it's helpful to know a little bit about our commitment to diversity and inclusion. I know Tia and I eat, sleep, and breathe these numbers. It's really everything that we put a lot of effort into to make sure that our workforce is representing the communities where we're doing business. When you look at our global workforce, because again, we are a global institution, we have stats that we're really proud of. And these stats help us stand apart from other financial services institutions, but they're really actually great across industries too. So 50% of our management team is female, 50% of our management team is diverse, And so when we say diverse, what we mean are people who are underrepresented generally throughout the workforce. 32% of our management team are women. 50% of our global workforce are women. And then our US-based workforce are 45% people of color. So it's an incredibly diverse workforce, generally speaking, but especially for a financial services institution when you look across our peers. So I'll jump ahead a little bit. So employee networks. So how do we actually build community at work? It's generally through our employee networks. I've worked in a number of places. Encourage you guys, if you have time, look both Tia and I up on LinkedIn and you can see what our work history is, so you kind of understand the context, the frame of reference that we have for this. But I've never worked at a company that has so many employee networks. We have 11 employee networks, all with their own leadership structures that provide lots of opportunities for their membership, right? And it's common to see employees who are members of more than one network. And the benefit of that is you get to meet people who work outside of your team, who may look like you or may be an ally to whatever affinity that network is based on. And you're coming together obviously for social gatherings, for networking opportunities, but also for professional development and even opportunities to participate in recruiting events like National Black MBA. We like to talk a lot about what we do well. So we win awards for some of the work that we're doing to be a great place to work. And you can see across the bottom here some of the most recent awards that we've won. We were named one of Fortune 100's best companies to work for, and we were the only financial services institution named on that list of 100 companies. And we're very proud to say, that we're always on the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index, and for 2020 we made that list again. All right, so this list actually goes back to what I started with. And so before we get into the content today, it's the very last thing I want to show you is that regardless of what it is you want to do, it's very likely that Bank of America has an entry-level talent program that aligns to that. So the entry-level talent program is great because it's really intended to get folks who are coming directly from the classroom or who are starting with 0 years of work experience, all the tools and training that they need to be successful in the job that they're starting in. And there's a lot of different jobs listed here where you see those check marks, but it really comes down into 3 main buckets. There's technology and operations, there's banking and markets, which are all of our client-facing roles, and then there are corporate functions, which are aligned to all of those other businesses as a support function. So whether you're interested in working in technology, whether you want to do wealth management, whether you want to work in corporate audit, there are opportunities across the board. All right. And I see some questions coming in on the back end, FYI, which is great. So please keep those questions coming in because we want to get to those when we get to the last 15 minutes of our time slot. So I'll get us started. We can talk a little bit about refining your personal brand and what you need to know before you actually hit the conference. So a few facts that I'll share with you here. So we make judgments about someone's likability, competence, trustworthiness, and aggressiveness within 1/10 of a second. So if you think about how fast that is, that means that before you show up to meet somebody, you have to be ready to make the right impression. Our first impressions are usually fully formed and stable within 30 seconds. And a counter fact that's not listed on the slide that I'll tell you is that data shows that sometimes it can take up to 7 repeat meetings with someone to change what that first impression is. So think about that, and you really want to be really mindful of what that first impression is going to be, so that you don't have to come back 7 times to undo that. The reality is you won't really have 7 times to interact with the same recruiter or the same business rep if you're meeting somebody in a fast-moving environment like a career fair. So you really have to be intentional with that first impression. So the other thing to keep in mind here too is like once that first impression has been formed, people are more likely to look for things that reinforce how that first impression is actually accurate and true, which is why it takes so many times to undo that or reverse that first impression if it's negative. One of the things that we tell people, when you're trying to develop your brand, especially in a workplace setting, or as it relates to you advancing your professional career, you really want to be mindful of your executive presence. So what is executive presence? Executive presence is kind of the it factor, which is a combination of your confidence, your poise, and your authenticity, which conveys a message that you're in charge, and if you're not in charge, that you deserve to be, or that you have the potential to lead. So appearance, meaning how you look, right? When you're showing up for an interview, or you're showing up at the career fair, it's what you're wearing, it's your body language, it's how you physically make that first impression in front of somebody who you've never met before. Communication, how you speak, and really what you say. So the tone, the pace of what you're saying, how you're communicating, whether it's in succinct points, whether you're very clear in what you're saying, is really important, and what people will walk away with their understanding of an impression of you. And the last one here is gravitas. So that's how you act. And we're going to talk more about that next. So gravitas is defined differently in different places. I was looking at the Webster definition this morning, and essentially the way that they describe it is your ability to be viewed as serious about a given issue or topic, right? And when you think about what that means in the workplace, it's really important for you to be able to establish yourself as someone who's very focused and intentional on the work that they're doing, right? When you think about establishing yourself as a leader, that's why gravitas is really important. And the information that we're showing here was actually a poll that was taken of senior leaders where we asked them to break down what are the most important facets of leadership. And gravitas came in by far the first one. So 67% of top-level executives who were asked named that as the top factor. 28% said communication, and only 5% said appearance, right? So if you are overly obsessed with those other two things and you completely disregard gravitas, you're missing a huge part of the picture. All right, so how do you actually build gravitas? Like, what do you do to develop that and actually come to the table with it the first time you meet somebody? Make sure that you are communicating in succinct points. Make sure that you're maintaining an even tone and volume so that you can be heard clearly. Make sure that you're checking your body language and that you appear engaged, but also calm and confident. Make sure that you're dressing professionally. And again, that's something that's really easy to control. So make sure that you don't overlook that. And you want to make sure that people are paying attention, not necessarily to what you're wearing, but they're paying attention to what you're saying, right? So you don't want to show up with anything that distracts from what you want people to remember. And then you also want to make sure that you're asking for specific feedback and acting on it. And that's an important point, I think, really for anyone who's early in their careers, to make sure that you're asking for that feedback. And whether or not you agree with the feedback or it resonates in your heart, you know, that feedback is useful. So make sure that you're asking for it and that you actually do something with it when you get it. All right, so a few other important soft skills to keep in mind as you're approaching events like the National Black MBA Conference. People across the board, no matter what role you decide to apply for, want to be able to hire someone with great critical thinking skills. These are folks who can use problem solving skills and apply reason and experience. And we look for people who have great teamwork skills, who can work well with others. We look for folks who have great leadership skills. And leadership, I think, is one thing that I'll highlight, right? If you're a member of 100 different clubs on campus, that's fantastic. But we really care about the ones where you've made an impact. So talk to us about where you've been a leader in your community or on your campus. We also look for assertiveness. So people who can make sure that their voice is heard in a balanced and confident manner. And lastly, but most importantly, really, is integrity. So we like to hire people who will do the right thing when nobody is looking. So Tia, I'm going to hand it over to you for a little bit if you want to walk us through networking, and I will advance the slides for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephen. So this is an important slide, and I want to start with what is networking. So networking is, to me, the intentional pursuit of a mutually beneficial relationship that leads to personal and professional success. So that could be through the exchange of information, resources, or some sort of support. Networking will help to build those mutually beneficial relationships. So I consider networking the digital, I would say digital, because now, you know, everything is virtual. So I would consider it the currency of our generation. It leads people to long-term relationships, to new opportunities, into career growth. And, you know, it's so much more than just the exchange of a business card or a LinkedIn connection. You want to show people that you're being intentional by identifying your purpose, what you want, who can help you attain that. And just don't be afraid to state what it is you want. You also want to share your goals openly, because you never know who may be able to help you achieve those. And so I know y'all heard the phrase, closed mouths don't get fed, or if you haven't, welcome to my childhood. That absolutely applies to your personal and professional relationships. So definitely state what it is you want, have a purpose and objective, and go out there and pursue that. So you can also show that you're being intentional by seeking feedback, as Stephen said, and being open to the thoughts and the ideas of others. Now, networking effectively and being intentional is going to take a lot of discipline. So you have to invest the time and the energy building a diverse network of people that you keep in contact with, and that you can not only gain value from, but you can also provide value to. So your relationships, if you think about it, should be, of course, mutually beneficial, but I would recommend practicing the 51-50 method. And that just means giving 51%, or trying to give at least 51% to all of your relationships, whether that's offering a new idea, sharing resources or advice, or, you know, whatever you can do to make yourself useful to others or add value in some way. Do that. You have to be, you know, a little bit more comfortable with building that network before you actually need it. So be sure to offer help in the beginning. and see what it is that you can do for them. And again, be thoughtful. So stay in touch, but also respect the boundaries of your network. So don't ask questions, don't ask too many questions that you can Google the answers to. Google is your friend. They have, more information on Google than, you can think of. So definitely utilize Google first. And then, that'll make you seem a little bit more competent and knowledgeable about the information that you are looking to obtain. So when does networking happen? And the answer is throughout the entire hiring process. So you want to start by doing that research. We also always encourage people to do research on the industry, to do research on the company, to do research on the department, the position, down to the person if you know who you're connecting with. If you have the opportunity and the time to do that research so that, again, you appear knowledgeable, you appear prepared and competent. And then you also go ahead and apply to the program. So once you do that research, you should find an opportunity that you're interested in and apply to the program. And then you can go ahead and follow up. So if you have a contact at the bank or if you have a contact on the recruiting team, go ahead and follow up and notify a recruiter or a representative that you've submitted your application, you're looking forward to next steps. And then you should be invited to the interview process. So you would go ahead and interview. Usually that interview, first round interview is a virtual interview. So you would go through the interview process. And then ultimately, if you are successful, you would accept your offer. And then start your first job, day one. Okay, next slide, Stephen, thank you. So let's talk about acing the interview. This is such an important part of the recruitment process. It's the entryway into the company. So just to give you a little bit of information about our recruitment process, you want to start by, of course, submitting that application, and then you will receive the offer to the first round interview. And as I mentioned before, the first round interviews are typically that pre-recorded video interview, virtual, and we would ask about 4 to 5 questions or so, and they would be behavioral based questions. So it really is an opportunity for you to share your story, tell who you are, and really why you're interested in the opportunity that you're pursuing. So you also want to practice before you get to this stage. Again, Google is our friend. So, research, interview, best practices, behavioral interview questions, common behavioral interview questions that you can kind of get prepared for, and go over some answers, and think about some examples that you can use in your interview. You also want to think about the STAR technique. And so we can get a little bit further into it, but the situation, task, action, result is always a good way to answer your interview questions. So do some more research on that technique if you're not familiar with it as well. So once you finish that first round interview, you'll then go into the final round interview, which is considered our super day. And that is usually a half day of interviews conducted live. You'll either do it on the phone, you'll do it virtually a video interview while we're still virtual, or it would be in person in that location that you are that you're getting the job in. And then you'll be more prepared here to answer the more technical questions. So here you'll want to know a little bit more about the role, a little bit more about the industry, and how you can add value and how your transferable skills will help impact that organization. And then if you are successful, lastly, you would get an offer. And so that is a little bit about our recruitment process from the first to the final round in the offer stage. All right, so a couple of tips for virtual in-person interviews. As I mentioned before, you want to do your research, as much research as you can. So won't spend too much time here, but just make sure that you understand the role. And one really good way to do this is to leverage LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn has gotten so much more powerful over time, where you can find employees that work at the company that you're interviewing for, in the area that you're interviewing for, and you can reach out to them. And not everyone will respond back, but it's always worth a shot, because some people will be open to meeting with you and telling you more about their day-to-day. And so that's kind of an inside look at the role before you go into the interview process. So always recommend doing that. When you come into our interview process, if you go through certain programs, or if you connect with recruiters, we're also happy to connect you with different representatives, line of business representatives from different areas, or alumni from your school, to get you more information on the area. You want to practice, of course. Practice makes perfect. So one thing that I do personally, when I'm preparing for an interview, I go over those common interview questions. I go over my transferable skills and the highlights from my background and my career. And I write out some of the examples, especially with behavioral questions, some of the examples and scenarios that I can think of from my experience that would directly, answer some of those common questions, so that, it's fresh in my mind when I get asked the question. And a lot of the times it does help me prepare and be successful in the interview. Of course, next, dress professionally. So first impressions do make a difference. You want to make sure that you are dressed professionally, t-shirts and jeans, and, we won't explain too much there. You all are familiar with what professional dress looks like. And then also be conscious of your body language. So avoid talking with your hands too much. I know a lot of people are super passionate and they talk with their hands, but sometimes that can be distracting to the interviewer. So just kind of be mindful of that. Sometimes I have a nervous habit of tapping my foot, tapping one foot. And so I realize that other people can see and feel that too, even though I don't realize it. So you have to just be mindful of your body language. And lastly, time management and content. So you want to give yourself enough time to have the right details about your background, and the highlights that your interviewer may need. So like I said, that comes with preparation. Think about some of the highlights of your career that you want to be sure to incorporate in that interview. Even if they don't ask you the question, get it in there anyway. I make sure whatever highlights I want to bring to the table and I want my interviewer to know, I incorporate it in an answer in any way that I can. Or if I don't get asked the question, if you don't get asked the question at the end, when they give you the opportunity to say any last words or ask questions, incorporate some of that into your conversation. All right, next slide. I think that might be it. Okay, I'll pass it back over to Stephen.
Absolutely, thanks, Tia. Those points are very helpful, and I'll be first to tell you that I'm one of the people who loves to talk with their hands. So the advice that you gave is relevant, not just to people starting out in their career, but I think it's helpful really throughout your career. So let's talk about this slide. So this is one that we like to throw in before we get to the end, just because we want to do everything we can to equip you to get to this point. But we also want you to be ready for what happens at this stage in the process, right? So if you are successful and you're a great, talented candidate, you are very likely going to end up in the situation where you get the offer and you need to decide what to do with it. And what's most likely is if you end up in that situation once, you're probably going to have multiple offers in hand, right? So you'll get to a point where after you've done all this hard work, you will have the difficult decision to make of what to do with those. And so we really want to spell this out for candidates, because I think that in what we call the war for talent, right? Companies can be really aggressive in the way that they really try to sell the offers that they put in the hands of candidates. And so it's important to be prepared for this stage in the process so that you don't end up accepting an offer before you've had enough time to consider it, or before you've had enough time to ask all the right questions. So we'll use our offer process as an example here so that you can understand what happens when you get to the stage in the process and what what mindset you should have. So the first thing that happens if you make it all the way through the hiring process is expect people to be excited. You're going to have a whole team of cheerleaders behind you saying congratulations, and we're so excited that you decided to interview with us. We want to extend this offer. Let us know what questions we can answer. And anyone who reaches out with that message, honestly, I can tell you they mean it. So take them up on that and ask lots of questions. A few of the things that you'll get if you decide to accept the offer will be training, and in some cases, optional pre-work. And so if you're thinking of a job like, I used to be a recruiter for our investment banking program. And so the investment banking program is set up so that you have 10 weeks in the internship, and the whole first week is spent in training, because we're hiring people who are coming in from finance courses, from history courses, from art history courses to come and be investment bankers. So there's an elaborate training program that's put in front of them to teach them the job. Interns who are coming into a program like that, especially a technical program, will have access to those training materials months before the internship starts. So highly recommend, be ready for that opportunity. Don't ignore it, because it's a great opportunity to hit the desk ready to do the job on day one. Lots of companies will offer you mentorship programs. We do the same thing. So anyone coming into the bank will have access to both a junior mentor, somebody who is most likely at your peer level, who you'll have day-to-day access to, as well as a senior mentor. And that could be somebody who might not be within your daily group, but someone very senior at the bank who has volunteered to spend dedicated time with you to answer questions and sort of be your sponsor and advocate as you are joining the team. Some groups also have a hiring process that's considered a generalist process. So I mentioned investment banking, and there are a few other teams too, where you interview for the role, you get the role, and then after you accept, you get to go through what we call the group placement process. So you get to determine what team you want to work on after you've accepted the offer by going around and networking with different groups, and then submitting to the recruiting team a stacked ranked list of all the teams who you had a chance to network with, to let us know what your preferences are so that you can end up working on the team where you want to be. We also do, and I will say that the benefit of group placement for entry-level programs is that you actually get exposure to more groups than you may be considering initially. And so it's actually intended to be an additional step where folks get to learn about all the different teams and career options that are available without the pressure of having to accept the offer, because that's already behind you. So the onboarding process takes a few months, but there's a background check and other paperwork that needs to be done on the back end so that you can start on time on day one as an employee ready to join our team and get paid with your first pay cycle. So those are important steps that every employee goes through. And then the last one is intern housing, right? So think about this too when you're deciding where to apply, right? Some people will limit themselves to where they apply based on where they think they'll be able to live. Our programs, for the most part, offer intern housing stipend. So let's say you wanted to come and work in New York City for the summer, but you don't live in New York City. We offer you funds so that you can make that happen. So definitely do that research and understand so that you don't preclude yourself from any options that you might have in terms of pursuing a career. Other things to keep in mind too, if you get to this stage in the process, you're probably going to have competing offers, and that's a good problem to have. But make sure that you're mindful of offers that have really short deadlines. Some employers tend to be very aggressive with this and might give you as little as 72 hours to accept an offer, or they'll tell you that that offer is going away. So it's important to stay really closely connected with recruiters. Always, always, always ask for extensions if you think you need an extension. It's totally fair for you to ask for additional time to accept an offer, especially if a company thinks you are a great talent. They should be invested and be accommodating in some way, however they can. So highly recommend that you just keep these things in mind going forward. Now let's see. So I want to pause here and I want to jump into some of the questions that we've gotten. So again, if you haven't submitted a question yet, but you plan to, bring them on, because we're here to answer all of those questions before we finish today. And so I'll jump into the first couple. So does Bank of America hire international graduate students for summer internships? And do we then possibly bring them back full-time upon graduation? So that's a great question. And we get this question a lot. So we are a global employer. So the answer is yes, we do sponsor international students to work in certain parts of our company. So there are specific programs that do allow international students to work in the US. And those tend to be the businesses that have the global footprint. So that will be like investment banking, sales and trading, a lot of our client-facing businesses that work with institutional clients, so in banking and markets, and in some other highly specialized technical roles in technology and operations. So it depends on what program you're applying for. But I would tell you, if a program does not sponsor international students, it will say that in the description of the role. So always, always, always read the job description. Okay, and I think we had a question that actually went to the chat. So I will go and pull that one up. So Susan asked a question. She said, and this one was actually for you, Tia. So I'll let you take a first pass at answering it if you're okay with that, but I'll read the question too. So could you share ideas on how to provide help to people who are more senior or have more working experience than students? So if you're a working professional, how can you navigate networking, basically? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So I read that as if you are a student and you're trying to network with someone who is more senior than you. What are some ideas that you can offer to help them with, if I'm understanding that correctly? And the way I would answer that is one, acknowledge their experience and expertise, and that you can always, learn from them. But two, it could be as simple as, offering a new idea, sharing an article, or just kind of during the process, you want to get to know a little bit more about them so that you can discover, ways that you could possibly help them or add value in the future as well. But through that, you'll want to, in the process, share resources, if you have them, or ask questions, and just, be humble and appreciate, show your appreciation of the advice given, but also keep them in mind, and just, everyone is human. So check in to just see how they are. And I think that goes a long way in networking. Stephen, did you want to add?
That's good advice. Yeah. And I mean, I think that some of the advice is really relevant, regardless of whether or not you're a student or whether or not, it's someone like you or me who works at a company, right? So I think that you're right. It's important to make sure that networking is based on building and maintaining relationships so that it doesn't feel like it's transactional and that you're showing up because you have your hand out and you need something. Right. So yeah, so I think that what you said is like keeping it human and really checking in on other folks periodically, even when you don't necessarily need something, is a good way to foster those relationships. And like I think it's also helpful to build relationships with people outside of like the transactional nature of doing tasks for work, right? If you can find somebody with commonalities, and I think employee networks are great for that because they help people connect with folks outside of their team. Those are good ways to go about it.
Yeah, I love the point about employee networks. When I started my career, I immediately got involved in employee networks. I didn't start my career with the bank. I started at the bank about a little over a year and a half ago. I forgot to mention that. But I immediately got involved in the employee networks, and eventually, about a year and a half to 2 years into my career, I was the co-lead for the African American Women's Employee Networks. And so that was an amazing experience, an amazing way to build a network of people who look like you, and even people who don't look like you, who you're allies with immediately upon entering an organization. And it's a way to kind of connect outside of the work environment. You get to meet people who are in different lines of business, and learn about what it is they do to really understand the company a little bit more. So I think that is a great way, and I definitely always encourage new employees to get involved with employee networks or associate resource groups. They call them different things at different companies.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we got a couple more questions here, so I'll try to pull them up. So we have Chris asked a question. He said, at the conference, what kind of Bank of America events are going to be available? So I will answer this question very broadly as well. So we will obviously be at the Career Expo. And so we are, I will tell you all, participating virtually this year. So we will be at the Virtual Career Expo, which for us is nice because it actually lets us bring more people to the event where we're not really bound to who we can physically have in the room. So we're looking forward to that. At some point, you know, we are looking forward to being back with everyone in person. So that's definitely on the horizon, but this year will be virtual. So we'll be at the Virtual Career Expo. We plan to attend in a way where folks who are interested in any part of our company can find a representative, whether it's a recruiter or a professional who they can talk to. And we like to use the Career Expo just as that opportunity, right? So ask all the questions you want, because the candidates who are most successful in the hiring process are the ones who can talk through what the day-to-day responsibilities of someone who works in that role can do. So we're there to answer those questions and share all that information. We're also going to pivot to having lots and lots of virtual events that cover a broad theme of topics throughout the fall. So our engagement with the National Black MBA community isn't limited just to, you know, the week of the in-person or the week of the virtual conference. We're going to be hosting events that cover soft skills, so topics similar to this, but we might go into more depth on things like resume review writing, how to actually ace the behavioral interview, and some techniques for that. We'll also talk more about the specific areas of our company, right? So we broke all those different programs up into those 3 buckets. So expect there to be sessions on programs in technology and operations, client-facing roles, which we call our market maker roles, or our corporate function roles as well. So lots of opportunities. If you all register using that link that we shared at the beginning, you'll have all the information that you need if you want to choose to participate in those. So a few more questions. There's actually a lot coming in, so let me try to keep up. So does Bank of America offer remote positions for internship, part-time or full-time? So right now, actually, almost all of the companies working remotely. So Tia and I have been working remotely for how long? Like 16 months?
I have been remote for 90% of my career with Bank of America. So yeah, quite a while. I'm not down to the month, but it's been.
It's been a while. It's been a while, but really that's the story for most people too. It's like we've been here. There are people who we work with every day who we haven't met yet. So we've been remote for a while. I think that's going to be the plan for a bit longer. But I think this fall we're looking forward to coming back into the office. So once the team is back in the office, we're super excited that means that next year's internship will be in person, and that's going to be the reality, I think, going forward. So we're looking forward to it. All right, and so there are a few more questions here. Someone asked, can we get connected to Bank of America recruiters before the National Black MBA Career Fair? The answer is going to be yes to that. And does Bank of America host job openings specifically for National Black on their website? So the answer to that is yes too. So the best way to get connected is to register with us at this event. So that link that we had at the beginning, we're going to have sent around after today's event. Definitely register, because that roster is shared with our recruiting teams. You'll also be able to upload your resume. And closer to the start of the conference, we're also going to be posting the jobs that we'll be prepared to talk about in our virtual career fair. So all of that information is going to be coming up, so feel free to look out for it. Okay. I'm going to jump back to the chat really quick. I see some questions in there. Okay, so someone's asking for the link. Yes, I will go back to that link really quickly while I take maybe a couple more questions. So let me just go back before we go to the end of our presentation. And forgive me while I click through everything you guys have seen so far. Okay, so this is the link. So there's a tiny URL down here, or you can point your phone camera at this QR code and it'll take you to the page. So I'll leave this up for a little bit. All right. And so I see a few questions. I know there's some folks who are saying, I think we have an audience that ranges, right, from students to people who may have some work experience but might be pursuing an MBA. So questions are, are there opportunities available for me? The answer is going to be yes. So Tia and I work in campus recruiting, But when we show up at the career fair for National Black, we're only half of the team. So the other half of the team are the folks who are recruiting for experienced positions. So regardless of what you're coming to us with, we very likely have a position that's a fit for you. So the advice that I'll tell you all is show up at the career fair having looked at our career site so that you can come to a recruiter or a professional and tell them that there's a specific job that's posted now that you're interested in. That's the fastest, easiest way for you to go directly into the hiring process. So do some of that pre-work.
And one thing I want to add in preparation for the career fair, take a look at those jobs, yes, but just to keep in mind, we have a limit of 3 applications per, it's 3 application submissions for U.S. internship programs. So keep your top 3 programs in mind. I would recommend, keeping those top 3 in mind, and you can apply and max out. That's always, great, but limit it, because there's been times where, I've spoken to a student who said that they were interested in anything they can get their hands on very vaguely, or I'm interested in all 8 of these programs. I'm like, okay, so, make sure that you narrow your focus so that we know who to direct you to. If there's someone that maybe an alum of your school or in the business that we can connect you to, we can do that. But 3 is that number. So I definitely just wanted to add that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're exactly right, Tia. And I'll say you were at the last National Black Conference that took place in person, right? So you see how busy it gets.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot. What you're describing happens a lot, right? Where students will show up at the career fair booth and they'll say, so what are you hiring for? And it's like, well, it would be great if we could jump straight to where, you can tell me what you want to do that we hire for, and we can get the process started. So that's good advice. There's a good question here, Tia. I'm gonna lob it up for you to answer. It's about our partnership with HBCU. So I'll jump in on the tail end, but how important is it to you both to be intentional with the development of HBCU students for opportunities within Bank of America?
Yeah, no, that is something that's super important to me, to Bank of America, to the company. I will say, as an HBCU student, there is a lot, or as an HBCU alum, I'm aware that there is a lot of first generation college students and first generation corporate students. So those who have never, had a parent who's worked in corporate America, and this is their first experience in corporate America. So we understand that, it's going to take some professional development, some hands-on, training, and that's what our partners have also told us. And our partners being our HBCUs that we work with, they've told us, students are interested in the interview, the preparation, and the networking preparation, and other, developmental presentations, but also interested in things like managing your personal finances and, how to have better money habits. And so those are some things that we present on as well. We want to make sure that we are, catering to the needs of the student and the school. So I definitely say that it's something that is top of mind and is a priority for us. And we have, a robust school team, program where, we've got alum and executives who are going to assist, HBCU students through the process and kind of be that point of contact if they have any questions. So I think that's going to be something that's super beneficial this season.
Yeah, I agree with that, right? On a personal level, working with HBCUs is important to me because I think I truly appreciate how transformative the opportunity to attend an HBCU can be in somebody's life, right? And I mentioned at the start of this that I didn't attend an HBCU, but my grandmother did. And so the fact that my grandmother was able to go to college in the 40s, a working class Black person could not go to college unless they were going to an HBCU. And that's the legacy that these institutions have. And the way that they continue to change people's life, that's still very real. And so I think that it's important for us to engage with HBCUs, obviously, because there's great talent to be had there. But I think that the partnership that companies like Bank of America have with HBCUs are just important in the way that we can support them as cultural institutions, very important institutions in American civilization. And I think that that mentality approaches the way that we partner with the schools, right? Because it's not about the transactional, let's show up at a career fair and get your resume and run with it. It's more about how can we support success for the academic programs, for the students, and create opportunities for them when they enter the workforce than just making a short-term hire. And I think that if you all are following any of the press releases that have come out, in particular in the past few months, where Bank of America has made this commitment of deploying $1.25 billion in funds into communities of color, one of the biggest recipients of those funds are HBCUs. So that money is going toward providing grants that help more students afford the 4 years of education that they're getting. And that makes a big difference. I think it is really, really important to a lot of people here. And we have a lot of very senior executives who are HBCU alumni. So it's a sentiment that I think a lot of people share.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna stop there. I know that we have about 9 minutes left, and I think that our team at National Black wanted to come on just to cover a few slides at the very end. So I'm gonna get us back to where we were and invite them to.
I do, but this is great stuff. So if you want to take a few more, I will acquiesce.
Okay, all right, let's go back. Any more questions from the group? I don't think we see any that we haven't gotten to.
Okay.
Oh, there's one question here. How veteran friendly is Bank of America? So I'll take that one. So folks with a military background are actually one of the groups that Tia and I focus on as a team. So we're really invested in making sure that we partner with external organizations that do great work with people who are leaving the military and then re-entering the workforce. So one of the organizations, Posse Veteran, we just did a recent event with where we talked through how to write a resume if you're re-entering the workforce, and then facilitated networking so that people got that kind of firsthand exposure to professionals to understand the ins and outs of their job to be ready for the application process. And that's just one organization, but there's a number of them that we work with throughout the year. And we actively track the number of hires that we make of people who are coming back into the workforce after leaving the military. So we have goals that we set in terms of making sure that we're looking through applicants in our portal and hiring at a rate that represents folks with a military background in the general population. So like I was sharing those stats at the beginning, where we're looking at how many women are in our workforce, how many people of color. We're also looking at how many people with a military background. All right, Paula, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. So if you can go to that next slide. So we have been talking about preparing for conference, but definitely wanted to give you some visibility into an opportunity that is quickly closing in on you, and that is our virtual case competition. We typically do this at conference, but obviously this year, as we continue to emerge, hopefully out of COVID, this one will be virtual as well. And the deadline to apply for the case competition is Friday. So if you can go to that next slide. If you are in undergrad, the opportunity for $30,000 in scholarships presents itself. Again, you have to register the case team by Friday, and it is sponsored by International Paper as well as Walmart. And these case competitions are a great opportunity for your team to be able to showcase your ability to analyze, interpret data, as well as to present in front of senior level executives. And I will say that these executives also do take a look at your resumes and see the skills that the Bank of America team has been gracious to share with you today. This next slide just highlights that the opportunity increases if you are in an MBA program at $50,000, and that is sponsored by Stellantis, which is formerly known as FCA. So again, Friday is the very last day for your team to register for the case competition, so I encourage you to do so. Next slide, please. And that is just to reiterate that, again, our conference will be hybrid. So we will be in Chicago, September 14th through 17th. The career fair is on that Thursday, Friday, 16th and 17th. And for those who choose to consume virtually, that career fair portion will be September 21st and 22nd. Hopefully you heard that that's how Bank of America will be showing up. So you will want to be sure that you engage there. If for some reason you come in person, just know that you will also get access to that digital career fair the following week. So be sure to register today. And then that almost next to the last slide is there will be over 200 companies looking to hire qualified talent such as yourself. So as a result of this amazing content that you got today, you will be even more prepared to get in front of Bank of America as well as the other companies that are there to hire. And then the last slide is, thank you so much. I know that I have learned so much from this content today, and hopefully you have too. So you will see this QR code here. We want to get your feedback. So if you found this session as helpful as I have, please click on the link. The first 25 people to fill out the survey will be entered in a chance to win an Amazon gift card. So again, do not delay in giving us your feedback. Thank you so much for sharing this hour with us. Thank you, Bank of America, for spending this time to pour into our members and these students. I hope you all have an incredible rest of your day. Take good care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.